What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Work for Change podcast. I'm your host, John. Jean is on this episode, but he's not here while I'm doing the intro. This is episode number 95. Wow, 5 away from 100 of the Work for Change podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Big news. If you guys were not able to pick up some of our merch on the first launch, we're actually relaunching all of the other stuff, along with, if you guys are watching the video, I'm wearing the red Work for Change shirt. This one goes all the way up to a 4XL. We also have some shirts all the way up to a 5XL. So if you want to check those out, workforchangepodcast.com. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on that. But with this podcast, we have our friend Matt Vincent, he owns a clothing company called HVIII Brand Goods. He's also a 2-time world champion Highland Games athlete. He makes YouTube videos. He's an all-around really cool guy. It was a very, very fun conversation, talking about a lot of stuff, dealing with injuries, health at every size stuff, and just a lot of fun little topics. So I'm really, really excited about this episode, and I hope that you guys enjoy episode number 95 of the Work for Change podcast. All right, Jean, get it started, bro.
All right. Well, just want to say welcome. We got Matt here on the podcast. Matt Vincent, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Yo, what's happening, guys? I'm excited to get to chat with friends that I haven't seen in a while.
I know, it's going to be a good time. We're all virtual today, so.
Yeah, virtual friends.
Why John's photo is just a picture of him at the CrossFit games.
I have to trick everyone into thinking I'm actually buff, so.
I appreciate it. I've been trying to do this game for years.
So how you been, man? How's things been in quarantine world and everything going on?
It's weird, right? Because, there was definitely like full panic going into this thing of like, oh man, like how's business going to work? How's any of the things I do? Because I travel a lot and do events and stuff like that. And so I didn't really have any concept of what this would do with shutdown for my business. But as we've seen, I think with most people running online businesses, we've been okay. Mm-hmm. But it's been very weird being home this much, but we also disappeared for a 8-week road trip recently.
Yeah. So speaking of that, and this is something that I know Jean's really, really interested in kind of talking to you about, is your business, right? HVIII Brand Goods.
Yeah.
It's something that I think we as like, I guess you could call Work for Change like a new business as far as like getting merch out. So we recently did our first release. The shirt that I'm wearing is part of it. This is a second like soft release for just this red shirt. But we can't
see the shirt you're wearing.
Oh no!
It looks like an Under Armour tank top.
Oh yeah, you showed us. All we have is your picture.
Oh well, they'll be able to see it on the video, so that's all that really matters. But it's the shirt that you saw earlier.
Yeah.
But so we're obviously super inspired by what you've been able to build, HVIII Brand into, and I think it would be kind of fun, for the people that might be listening that might not know your backstory of like how did you get to deciding to start this company, HVIII Brand Goods? Like, I think that would be kind of good for people to kind of know.
All right. So it's a bit of a winding tale, I suppose, but here we go. I got that interesting question the other day as well, and I've been just trying to answer it as honestly as possible. And like one of the questions was like, hey man, we're trying to get apparel off the ground. What was the best tool you used for marketing when you started? Right. And I said, well, I was world champion twice in my sport. And then I wrote 3 books about it, and I had done 4 years worth of YouTube videos. And then I started making shirts. So that's where it came from, right?
This is what you're saying.
Yeah, overnight. It was I thought about it one day, next day, $1 million. It was great.
Of course.
So it all started, I guess, as I was competing in Highland Games. Highland Games is kind of a cool strength sport in that we make a little bit of money in the professional division. Probably there's 10 of us, 20 if you count pros around the world that are consistently good and at every game. And I would say, like, if you're in the top 10, it's kind of a free hobby at the least. And if you're in the top 5, you'll probably make a few bucks. So as I was doing well and winning, I wrote a few books regarding how my training was set up and how to train for the Highland Games for a year. And in one of the books, the thing I talked about was the hate. And this was kind of my own personal mantra and motivation. I know hate's a very strong word, especially now in a very polarizing time, but let's go back to 2014 when it wasn't as dividing to people yet. I'm very glad I named it a weird way so that it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's worked out really well.
Yeah.
That's worked out really well I didn't have to deal with a big crowd of people who've never bought things from me deciding to tell me that my name of my business was bad. So that was kind of how it got started. Was I started writing about it, and the gist behind it was it's this kind of self-motivation through a bit of self-loathing. This bit of never tolerating today as being good enough. This, not listening to that little voice in your head of complacency and contentment, but always like, yo, we can get better. There's always something we can do. We can learn more. We can grow more. We can experience more to build more tools, and we can do the best we can to always get better than yesterday. I'm not saying that we're always going to be the best we've ever been, but I'm saying we can get better than yesterday. And that's really what the whole thing's been about, is like hold yourself accountable to that line of whatever your standard is. If that's something that is important to you, like it takes you doing work. There's no magic. There's no any of that. And so hate yourself enough to do the work, man. Like don't listen to the rest of that good enough type stuff. And so it went from that till I started getting asked to make some shirts from people who had read and were following me. And so I did. And that has slowly grown into where we are now in 2020 from October of 2014.
So the way that I think of, because I've had people ask me, because I have some of the shirts and I wear them, and I've actually given some of them to my brother, who he actually got something from your most recent release. He's super excited about it.
I got a drippy coming.
Yeah,
man, I dig those.
Getting delivered today. I was hoping I'd be wearing it.
Oh, dang. But the way I think of it, and like, shoot, I could be totally off. You're the owner of the brand. But the way I think of it is like, there's a difference between hating yourself versus hating parts about yourself, right? Like you can respect and love yourself, but hate the fact that you smoke cigarettes and be like, I hate this about myself, so I want to change.
It's a really tough one right now. And man, I know that you deal with it as much as anyone via social media with, your platform, with as much transformation and change that you've gone through. I don't think self-love and complacency are the same thing. I think you can love yourself and be very happy with who you are and what you've accomplished, but it's still not being your final form. Like,
Absolutely.
You know that there's better, right? And I think people are just so touchy about that idea of like, be happy with where you are. Like, nah, man, I don't work that way. Like, I want to make progress. Now, I'm happy. I'm not unhappy with who I am or what I am or the body type I have, or I wasn't unhappy with the body type I had when I was 60 pounds heavier and competing. It was built for a purpose. But man, to continually care and make changes through rehab and try to change my body and try to grow my business and try to be a better person, like that's the line. And it's just, self-love is not complacency. I think that's important for people to understand. Like, you can have self-love and still be driven far enough to work hard.
Dude, I'm sorry I'm taking over the conversation, but like, this is something that I talk about a lot, and I am very passionate about, is like, just like, you can love yourself enough to want to change yourself, and like, but again, and like bringing it back to the hate brand goods is like, but there can still be parts about yourself that you don't love or that you hate, right? Like for me, I hated what being at my heaviest, I was 360 pounds, what that did to me. I hated how it made me act. I hated how it made me live my life. And so I was like, I want to change, right? And so I think, and what you said about self-love doesn't equal complacency is so unbelievably important, because when I post, I've been called fat phobic for posting before and after pictures, and it's like, okay, I'm not saying that before I was like a worthless piece of crap, but there were things I noticed about myself that I wanted to make a change. And I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but like I was just like hearing you say that, I was like, I completely agree with that.
And look, man, I think we live in a pretty soft time that people don't. And again, I'm a little older, right? I'm 37. I'll be 38 relatively shortly after the beginning of the year. But I just don't understand, man. Like, look, you can be in love with yourself at whatever size you are, and you can be confident at whatever size you are. But we can't pretend it's healthy. Like, that's just not true.
Yeah.
You know, you walking around at your height and the weight you were at, like, it's not healthy. Like, you're going to die from it.
And I wasn't doing much walking either.
Right. You know what I mean? And look, it's not body shaming as much as it's a fact. Like, whether or not being that big isn't up for opinion of being healthy. It's not healthy. It can be attractive. It can be opinion based, but it's not healthy. And if you'd like to be able to do more things and have more opportunities, man, I look at my health and fitness like training as putting deposits in the bank, man. If I want to go for a mountain bike ride or a hike or a run or these adventures that I get to go on or a rafting trip or any of these type of things that are super, super cool, or compete in a strength sport, like, I got to make enough of those deposits to have some, to have some credits to burn. It just doesn't work the other way. Otherwise, I got to say no to stuff all the time. And that's not okay with me.
I mean, and then you're pretty much, you're deciding what you're going to say no to, right? Like, it's an element of like, you can say no to the gym now and say no to eating healthy or eating relatively well or limiting what you do. You can say that now, but then later you're going to be forced to say no to the hike because you can't do it. Or you're going to be forced to say no to the bike ride or whatever, grabbing your child and holding them throughout the park or whatever, like whatever it is. Like, those decisions will be made for you because you decided to say no now. You'll have no choice but to say no later.
You have to pay at some point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And at least that's kind of where I've landed on looking at it. And I mean, look, I went through a couple really hard years of chronic pain where I couldn't do much. With my knee going bad and with all of that involved. But I mean, it's weird because whenever I was bigger, and I the biggest I ever got was 318, and I was doing strongman and stuff like that. But my good competing weight was about 265, 275. And at that weight, like, I still said no to a lot of things because my focus was on competing for my sport. And now that I'm out of that window and I'm not competing anymore, like, I want to be able to say yes to as many cool things as I possibly can, especially now that I'm not in pain.
Yeah. And like, one of the things I enjoy about your brand, I mean, we've spent so much time talking about just the name of your brand, but I'm sure you get this all the time. But like, another thing, and I know that you're kind of big on it in what you speak on, whether it be on podcasts you're in or your brand, is like the fact that there's like complexity within like life, right? Like, life just has complexities. To say, oh, this person is only this, and that is all they'll ever be. Like, that's just not true. Like, people change, people evolve, and even within the same person, like, to say, like what we were just talking about, I love who I am, I hate this part of me. Like, if you love who you are, there are going to be elements you hate because you believe.
There should be.
Yeah, right? Like, because you believe,
yin and yang, man.
You believe in yourself and you believe that you can change and you believe in all this stuff. So it's like, someone who loves, I know, I'll go back to like a child, for example, like someone who loves their child is probably going to hate the child molester who's trying to get into their house.
That's
right?
a fact.
I would hope so.
I hope, yeah, hopefully they're not like
Hey, welcome in. Come on. No, okay. I'm
glad we're running an anti-pedophile podcast.
Yeah.
But it's just like, the necessity of realizing that, like, hey, we're complex beings, and we don't have to say like, well, I stand for love, so therefore I have to love everyone and everything, because then that's cheap.
And nor do I want it to be a negative association, right? Like, I think it's empowering. I think it's knowing that, like, I'm aware of what my weaknesses are. I'm aware of what my shortcomings are. I'm aware of what I'd like to get better on. I don't pretend they don't exist. I hold accountable to it, and I do what I can to make it go away and get better or smaller. No one else can. I can't pay someone to do those things for me. The best I could do is ignore it and pretend they don't exist, but that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Where did you find this, like, kind of what you're talking about kind of reminds me of, like, Jocko Willink with his Extreme Ownership book, right?
Sure.
Like, if you succeed, it's on you, and if you fail, it's on you. Like, just accept ownership and move on. Like, where do you think that came from in your life?
I think it came from, just getting raised. And then I also think it came from competing the way I did, competing in track and field, and then competing in the Highland Games. I mean, we're a solo sport. Powerlifting's the same way, right? Like, if I lost, it was never someone else's fault. Like, I failed. And that's mine to own, and mine to chew, and mine to eat and deal with and lose sleep over. But also the success is mine too. And, like, I want the ball, man. Like, at the end of the day, and if something's on the line, especially with a way that I'm going to feel or something I trained for, like, that's the moment. Like, I want that. And, look, failure's not a big deal. We just have to stop thinking it is. Like, success is a terrible teacher. Failure is a far better teacher. So start failing, and start failing often. I mean, I try to explain that during seminars to people, this kind of mentality. One thing I recognized from my years of within riding bikes and doing stuff like that is watching, like, really talented BMX racers, or not racers, but riders, or skateboarders. Like, watch something like the X Games. And what the truth is that those guys are very, very good at is falling.
Yeah.
Right? Because they've fallen so many times, and they've done the thing so many times and failed so many times, they can recognize failure setting in earlier, on the approach. And they can make an adjustment or make a read instead of just riding it into the ground and losing 3 weeks of their life because it didn't work, but at least I rode it all the way through on fire, right? Like, they notice it early enough to bail and try again. And that's what you've got to do with your life is welcome the failures, because at least then you learn that's not the direction.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff is simply figuring out what doesn't work. I mean, it would be real sweet if there was a simple blueprint to what success is, but it doesn't. It doesn't exist. It's not. No one has it.
Yeah, no, I that's a great analogy, man. Like, because I skated like all my whole life growing up, and like you would see the skaters that were like that could actually do things, like they could actually grind on the rails going down the stairs, and you'd see them like they'd be skating up to the rail and they would just stop, and you'd be like, what? Why'd you stop? And like, I could tell something was off. Like, their foot was in the wrong position, right? But the only reason they knew that is because they did fail, and they did that. And so now they noticed, like, if we bring it to, outside of skateboarding, they were going down a certain path, and they noticed at some point in that path before they fell into the abyss that, oh, this is not going to work. So I'm going to turn around and go back to that fork in the road that I turned left on, and I'm going to turn right instead. And I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
I noticed it with dietary stuff, right? Like, I noticed that I've definitely got some type of a sensitivity to carbohydrates. And so I do get big inflammation spikes. I get stuff like that. Now, I don't identify as someone who's doing carnivore or keto. I've used these tools in the past, but I, for the life of me, man, I just don't understand identifying so hard with the foods I choose to eat that I need to make sure that that's the way I introduce myself to people, essentially with my name, right? Like,
hi, my name's Matt, and I'm a T-Rex.
right. Like, like carnivore, keto, macro, any of it, vegan. It amazes me right now that somebody would put that as their like name.
Yeah.
For social media. Because if I was a carpenter, like I wouldn't be Hammer Matt.
Yeah. Because
that's the tool I like using the most. Like that's all the diets are. They're just different tools, and they're the right tool at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think anything's valuable, but people get so locked into something, then you're not allowed to change because you think it identifies you.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I was very adamant about once I had retired and finished competing that I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to change my body. I grew a beard. I don't look like the same person. And it's made that transition of like, yo, that's not me. Mm-hmm. I haven't competed since 2016. A lot of people don't know at this point that I ever did a thing or was good at it. And that's fine by me. I don't, if your life is a book and every decade's chapters, you know, in like chapter 2 in my teens, you know, I've got high school football, and in my 20s, I've got college track and field, and in my 30s was Highland Games. Am I supposed to spend the next chapters of my book just talking about that one? It's a terrible book.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you do new things as often as possible to see what you're capable of? I'm not holding on to this like, oh, I just wish I could get back and compete because that's my thing. Like, I found it. I did it. It was great. I'm very, very lucky, and I'm very grateful that I ever got to do it. Mm-hmm. Right? That it ever worked out. That I ever had a window of success at a thing that my body let me do. But that window's closed. And so now I'm going to move on.
Was that first of all, we talk about that transition period from competing and then no longer competing, and then like, was that a hard transition, or did you kind of have that mindset of, okay, like, what was that period like, you know?
Mine was very odd because so at the end of my 2016 season, I wanted to get knee surgery because I'd competed the whole time without an ACL, and I was just starting to get enough wear and tear that it was really affecting things. Mm-hmm. So I went in to start fixing my knee, and that resulted in a bunch of surgeries that didn't go so well. And so 9 surgeries later in a 3-year period, and I got a total knee replacement. So them's the cards, right? Now I can either sit and mope about how unlucky I am, or I can be stoked that I got to be best in the world at a thing before this thing gave up. And look, the time was going to come that it was over anyway. I wasn't going to do this forever. And so I knew where I wanted my head to be on it from the jump. And I knew that before I had ever stopped competing, that at some point this will be done and I'm going to want to do more. Now, it took a while for my head to really catch up and realize what it was. So there's lots I miss about it. I miss the camaraderie and getting to travel with that group of guys. My brother competed in the Highland Games at a professional level, so I got to travel around the world and country with him for a few years, which was really, really special.
Mm-hmm. Sounds miserable traveling with your brother to me.
We're 5 years apart, and so we never got to like be in high school together. We didn't compete together, and so this was really fun. And Highland Games is mellow as far as competing goes. And then I miss that camaraderie, man. Like, those dudes are the tribe, right? Like, for an extremely overused word at the moment. Like, those are the dudes that know what it's like. They know what the training is. They know going out there to throw by yourself. Like, you know, don't forget what the Highland Games compared to strongman or CrossFit or any of these other type of things. Like, there's no Highland Games box full of people and coaching. Mm-hmm. I did all of this in a field and in my garage by myself for 8 years in the exact same way the other guys I compete with do. And so you're so solo for most of the training that when we get to compete, like, it's great. We get to see other people that are weird like we are. So I miss that. I was very fortunate that at some point in my life, a thing that I like doing, I got to be the best in the world at it twice.
Yeah.
I probably won't find a second thing to be best in the world at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But it's a bit of a bummer that the thing that I'm really good at, I don't ever get to do it again. Like, I can't kind of throw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the body won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bit of a bummer. It'd be like really mastering guitar and then someone being like, oh, never, you don't get to do that again.
Yeah, cut your fingers off or something like that.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's taken a bunch. The more mental toll from that really is that my body physically can't do the things that my brain is very used to being able to do easily.
Yeah.
So that's going to take time. But I did that damage, right? So there it is. Like, I didn't get this for free. I don't get both ways. And I was very aware in my pursuit that I think competing in strongman or Highland Games or weightlifting or CrossFit or bodybuilding or any of these things can be very, very healthy and beneficial to you. However, if you would like to push the envelope and to figure out how absolutely strong or good you can be at a thing at all cost, we've waved bye-bye to health.
Mm-hmm.
This is no longer the goal.
Yep.
There's the same reason that if you're on stage as a bodybuilder, this isn't healthy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guys riding bikes in the Tour de France, this is not healthy anymore. These guys are dying for a month.
Mm-hmm.
But cool.
Yeah.
That's where you get to see what you're made of, man. Once you're in that thin air that other people don't choose to breathe. And I love it. And so I'm going to find more of it in different avenues.
Well, it's
find more things I'm bad at.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, bringing up the Tour de France, because, like, with anything, it doesn't even have to be fitness related. Like, there can be anything that you try really hard for that can become unhealthy, right? If you look at, like, people that are trying to be doctors or lawyers, like, the amount of time that you put into that, it probably becomes unhealthy for a lot of people, the lack of sleep and stuff like that. But I think, like, what's the most important thing is to understand that might be the case and be able to, like, rein yourself back after a time, right? Because, like, if you're going to be the best in the world at something, for the most part, it's probably not going to be a healthy thing that you're, like, it's not going to be
It's also, if you reach it, it's not forever.
Yeah.
And someone's going to be better than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to work. It always has. You're not unique that someone else became better.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who's ever been good at something had that happen.
So I'm curious. So you said you had 9 knee surgeries?
9 total knee surgery.
So, I mean, I'm just, like, curious about the mindset going into all of those. Like, how much did it change, I guess, going from the first one to, the one of them in the middle versus to this last one that you've had, the total knee replacement? Like, how have you, I'm sure your mindset has gone through some things through that whole process.
The first one I was excited to get done because I was going to take a year off and fully rehab and train and really get ready to come back toward 2018. It just didn't work that way. Mm-hmm. I had cadaver tissue not hold and had some other things fail that resulted in more pain. Mm. I started having surgery due to a lack of function, not really pain. Mm. But then the pain came from surgeries. Oh. So, and again, if I would have just been smart enough or had the hindsight in 2016 to just retire on my knee the way it was, I'd be in better shape than I am now. Mm. But I don't get to play that. And Matt Vincent, chose to have elective surgery to fix my knee. Mm-hmm. This isn't my surgeon's fault. This is my fault. I own this. So I'll own the rehab, I'll own the pain, and I'll deal with it the best I can. It's not anyone else's fault. I'm not unlucky. And so I just think that's important for people to hear. Mm-hmm. And this was bad, man.
Yeah.
Once the pain got bad, I mean, it went from the last time I competed in 2016, I took second in the world, to I couldn't go up and down stairs. Mm-hmm. I couldn't walk 200 yards. I couldn't do any of those things. And I still have a limp. So surgeries went from kind of excited about the change and process to like the second one, finding out the ACL didn't take was a bummer. Mm-hmm. I was really upset about it, but here's where we are. How do we go forward? I don't own a time machine, so this is the options.
Yeah.
And then there just became a point where, of course, there's another surgery.
Oh, okay.
And then when pain had really gotten bad and kind of got to my wit's end, and I mean, truthfully, had kind of broken me.
When was that? Like time, like year wise?
That would have been really bad over 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, like probably all of late 2017 through all of 18.
Jeez.
And yeah, man, it beat me up. It made me not a great person. I'm glad to be on the back end of it. But the last surgery before the total knee replacement, I mean, I remember having a conversation with my doctor in tears about like, I need to know that this is going to make things better. Because I also know this is the last one. Like there isn't anything after total knee replacement. And so I was like, I need something going into this, knowing that this is going to be better than it was. And he responded simply and elegantly enough. He said, well, we're not trying to fix old parts anymore. We're putting in brand new ones. And that equals okay to me. I'm like, cool. Yeah. That adds up. That's how I'd fix a vehicle if I had to do work on it. I'm not just going to keep removing parts and hoping it works good. But I mean, the conversation I had with him, I was like, look, if this continues, I don't know that I'm going to be okay with keeping the leg forever. Like I can't live like this.
So it was that bad.
It was bad, man.
Wow.
It was really, really, really ugly. And I know, look, it's a great anecdote to tell people, but truthfully, I was there. I was at a point that I didn't know how to hit the off switch on pain. Drugs weren't doing it. Nothing I had going on would calm it down. Like I just always operated between a 3 and an 8 on the pain scale.
Jeez.
And so if it got really flared up, it would be this kind of 8 out of 10 shooting pain in my knee every time I exhale.
Wow.
So it got old. Once I had the total knee replacement, like they have you walk that day on it. Just, you got to get moving. It's not going anywhere. It's all cemented into the bone. So
yeah,
you can get moving. I knew, like, and I was in pain, right? I just had part of my bone removed off of my femur and tibia. And so you're in a bad place.
Yeah.
And I have this 10-inch incision on my leg. But the pain that I had been struggling with up until that point was gone.
Wow.
I knew that what I had at this point was just surgical pain.
Yeah.
Like soft tissue.
You could just tell just by how
I knew, yeah, man, that hot spot in my knee was gone because, well, the bone's not there anymore.
Was there were you just relieved? Like, I'm just so curious about this.
Oh, dude, I cried about it.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
Like I was very emotional after that first walk, and I've had weird emotional bits come over the last couple of years. Even since the knee replacement. I guess that would have been January or April of 19. I had it fixed.
So it's been just over a year.
Yeah, so like 18 months.
Yeah,
give or take. But I've started running recently, which
I saw that.
Not a great idea, but I'm bad at it.
I agree.
Right. So, and it's also something I've never done before, and it kind of helps me to set goals of a thing like cycling as well that I'll never be really good at, because I just don't have the skeleton to be good at either of those things. But it's fun getting better at them, because if I thought I could be good at it, that stupid switch will flip.
Yeah. And you're like 3-hour training rides every day. Yeah.
That's exactly what will happen. I will completely lose focus on anything else in my life, and this will become the sole pursuit, and I don't need that happening again. So yeah, progress has been good. It's been nice getting to do things like, even going on a small run and finishing it, and just kind of breaking into tears because like this was a thing that it was gone. Like I had decided like, okay, cool, we don't ever get to do that again. And then the fact that it didn't hurt and I was just sore the way you're supposed to be, it's a nice weight.
Yeah.
It feels like stealing abilities back.
So, not to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I totally got this wrong, but
You probably did.
you probably, it just sounds like, we were talking before about like, to be the best at something, you lose health, even in fitness, and like the best,
I would say especially.
Especially in fitness, like the best don't get balance. That's not like a luxury afforded to them.
I think it's a mistake we think is true.
But in this time, it kind of sounds like you are so grateful for the balance you have gained. Like this lifestyle of like, hey, I don't have to be the best. That's cool. I get to ride a bike, and then I get to go on a run, and then I get to do a road trip across America like you just did. Like,
yeah,
which I'd love to talk about. But like, this is stuff that like being the best in the world, you don't get to take 8 weeks off and, and just do whatever the heck you feel like, because that's getting in the way of training and numbers you have to hit and percentages and, whatever. But like it kind of sounds like, just the balance you've gained is, it's not that you've lost this stuff, which you have.
Well, the drive has gone other directions, right? It's gone toward the business. It's gone toward making this type of content. It's gone toward sharing my story and being a better communicator. It's doing those things better. Those are the intangibles. And like, I mean, I guess I look at it this way too, right? That while I don't think there will be a second thing that I'm best in the world at, sports-wise, but there isn't a rule about anything else, right? Like, I look at like Stone Cold Steve Austin and look at The Rock, both of which I would say almost identical wrestling careers as far as star level.
Yeah.
Man, I remember total side tangent, but when The Rock and Stone Cold faced each other.
Oh man, that was crazy.
What's the
WrestleMania?
WrestleMania. Oh my gosh.
Come on, brother.
I was just thinking about it.
Years ago when I started the podcast, I had Steve on the podcast.
Oh man.
And went to his house and recorded, and it was a very, very weird day for 12-year-old me in my head. So
you're like, he's gonna crack a beer over my head. I know what's gonna happen.
Dude, he's the best. And so like thinking about that and like what an incredible career he's had as Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's had other TV shows. He's done a bunch of great stuff, right? Meanwhile, the wrestling thing is like now a side note in something The Rock has done. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't diminish what Steve's done, but it means there's more. Mm-hmm. Right. And that you don't, there's not a rule that says this is the end of it. Man, the opportunity for greatness doesn't expire, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can do it every day. And so I want to get better at things. I want to learn how to do it. I want to hold myself accountable and take criticism and care about the things I'm going to do. The big changes now that came after the knee, and there's been some big life changes there. There's the knee, and then 2014 I lost my father to cancer, and that was a big wake up in just the sense of, man, tomorrow's not given to you. It's not guaranteed. Mm-hmm. And so if that's the case, better get to getting. Mm-hmm. Because there's a bunch of cool things I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I only have so many days left. I'm not interested in leaving this world in the same feeling like at the end of a trip of like, oh, I didn't do enough. Mm-hmm. I plan on leaving very empty and very tired.
Well, it kind of like what pops into my head when you say like, you might not be able to be the best in the world at something, but like that doesn't change the fact that you can be the best that you can be at XYZ thing.
100%, right?
Like,
but those are different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, maxing out your own potential is awesome and is what truly I'm interested in pursuing. Mm-hmm. But it's also cool that I think twice in my life, there wasn't anyone on the planet better than me at a thing. Mm-hmm. Which is also super neat. And not a lot of people get to experience that. I'm very proud of that work I got to do and that I performed when it counted. Mm-hmm.
It's certainly like a feeling that I think like, I'm sure it would be cool. I obviously cannot say that I have ever had the pleasure, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things that I slightly understand, but I think at the same time I'd be lying if I said I totally understand what you mean. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think, like, look at your perspective, man. Like, I mean, the same story that I tell about coming out of pain and having these kind of emotional moments. I mean, I watched something you posted the other day about being able to do this kind of static pull up in these different positions, whereas, you know, at another point in your life, you couldn't hang from a bar. Like, were there emotional releases for you through this change of like, I can't believe I can do this?
Oh, I mean, there's been multiple. Like, I remember when I did a sit up, push up, pull up, like all of those body weight things for me were huge. And then like being able to run, like I remember the first CrossFit work I ever did was with my brother. It was at this small gym, and we had to run a 400 meter as was part of the warm up. And I remember thinking like, oh, geez, dude, 400 meter. I don't know if I can
infinite distance.
Yeah. Like, and I did it. And I just remember being like, oh, like we were done. And I was like, yeah, man, that was cool. And John was just like, yeah, it's the warm up, dude. Like, it's of course, but for me, it was
right,
like,
man.
Obviously I didn't run when I was bigger. And when I lost the weight, I did it through like nutrition mainly, but then like bodybuilding training was my first type of training. And I didn't freaking run, like, no, thank you. And so even like little things like that, like there's been so many. And then if we go into the CrossFit thing, it's like muscle ups and handstand walks and all of that stuff like has been. So I guess, yeah, it kind of can have that same feeling.
I think skill acquisition's awesome for anyone, and it always feels good. But there's definitely a sweeter bit to it when at some point mentally you said, I can't ever physically do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, really mean it. Not like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. And then you try it and do it. I mean, like knowing that you're 5 years worth of diet and changing your life away from doing a push-up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a perspective that's crazy, man. I think that's now, like, I know some of the ways I feel with stuff, right? Because do you look at like what you managed with that weight loss and what you've done that like, yo, I've got a recipe that I can just press copy and repeat, that everything just takes hard work and time?
To a certain extent, yes. But I think like for me with the weight loss, it was so dependent on me that there weren't many other outside sources that could play into maybe not being successful, right? Like obviously there are always outside sources, but like nothing was forcing food into my mouth for the most part, right? Sure. So I could like fully be like, if I work hard, which work hard for me was not stuff my face, I will see results, right? And then I struggle with being able to relate that to other things. Like for, if I were to say like YouTube, like you can freaking put out content and do what you want and do what you can do. But sometimes like with YouTube, the algorithm might just never pick up your videos. And it's like you put in the work and you don't see the results. And so there's a part of it, but I think because for weight loss, it was such a personal choice driven thing that it was the perfect storm for me to be able to see results. And it was strictly based on the work that I was putting in. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I guess the way I look at it, right, is what you're saying. But I mean, I've been able to kind of apply those lessons because like, I know it doesn't work for the YouTube thing, and that's to stop making videos. Yeah. In the same way, if I'd like to lose weight at some point, I have to stop eating this way.
Yeah.
And so it's consistency, man, and it's not overnight, and you can't kid yourself anymore that even if you're YouTube channel or whoever you are and you have a video that blows up, that's not a career.
It's true.
And that's not a business. That's a video. That's a one-day check. And how do you make content that continues to inspire and drive people to do more for years? And just knowing that like, well, there's never going to be a last video, and get this one done because we got another one to make.
Yeah.
I just look at that level of consistency of like, some days, especially with training, when you're fighting for that motivation or any of it, like be consistent enough that none of it hangs on one thing. That you're like, man, today's the day, I just got to survive it.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, maybe I feel good to really push. But yeah, it's a weird life, man.
Yeah.
Here's something I've been pondering and curious to get your thoughts on it. I think our country's in a very odd place.
The world, really, man.
Yeah. World, especially U.S., for sure.
Yeah.
Our country, I think, as divided as it's ever been.
Yeah.
And doesn't seem to be going any great direction. One of my concerns is that we've seen this split happen over the last decade, and it gets in the canyon between the two sides gets further apart, and whether that was the 1% and the 99% being split, and that being this, left and right of our country, and then the political left and right of our country now, that's a big split that is so illogical and ill-informed, it's insane that the idea that you have to be all one side or the other instead of making logical decisions based on stuff. But this is what people have asked for and continue to seem to go for, so it's our fault. And then, the middle class has continued to move up and the lower class has continued to move down, so that 1% and 99% has continued to split. And now with COVID and things going forward from this, the next big split that I see happening in our country will be those of us who have our health and those of us who don't. And that makes me really nervous.
Yeah.
There's some of us who don't need as much health care. There's some of us who take care of ourselves, who choose good foods, who aren't getting sick, who don't have 2 to 3 pre-existing conditions for whenever a virus pops up. The people that are in the low concern risk factors, I guess, as far as something like this considers, or pneumonia or any of these other things. And this is one that the government's not going to be able to make a stimulus for. It's going to have to be a choice by people. And America with our government, yet still, as we've proven, that healthier seems to be better, especially in this case. Our government has never done anything to promote it because it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want anymore.
Yeah. I think that the one thing, man, and I mean, this is stuff I talk about all the time, is with, there are absolutely barriers when you are in poverty. There are things that you are dealing with that it's not as easy as just work hard. As much as people might want to say that, it's not as easy as that. But the thing with health,
not that at all.
The thing with health and the thing with, losing weight or whatever, for the most part, it really is it's not simple, and there's a lot of education that might need to happen. But once you get that education,
simple, it's not easy.
Yeah. There we go. Sorry, I mixed that up. But the education, once you get it, you can do it with literally zero money. Right? You can do it with the amount of money you have right now and what you're spending it on. You can decide, okay, I'm going to spend it on these things instead, and I'm going to spend my time on these things instead. And you can absolutely improve that part of your life. And we've been talking a lot about without outside sources, something I really like is stoicism. And one of the pillars is focus on what you can control. Right. And with health, you really can, for the most part, control what goes into your body. You can control what choices you are making in regards to your health. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this. And I talk about it so much, is because people will relate health or weight the same as they will say being in a worse place because of your race, or being in a worse place because of your sexual orientation. And I disagree with that, because it is so possible to change your situation in regards to health and size versus those other things, which I think is a much harder situation to deal with. And so I fully agree with what you're saying. And the thing that is hard is as the government, what do? When any decision they try and make, there's going to be backlash. If they try and say, okay, we're going to make it mandatory for schools to teach kids about nutrition or whatever, there's going to be a grip of people that are frustrated. They're like, this is a waste of money. But you know what I mean? Any decision that's made is going to be met with backlash there.
One of the things our country does which I don't understand at all, right, is I remember listening to this Louis C.K. bit a while back, and he's talking about his daughters, and he's got his 10-year-old, and he's like, man, she's great to play with because, like, she's 10 and has conversations with me and asks interesting questions that I've got to figure out a good way to answer. And if we play games, the games are fun enough that I can enjoy them. Mm-hmm. But he's like, I also have a 4-year-old, and she's an idiot. She's 4. Right. And so what ends up happening is me and the 10-year-old play games the 4-year-old understands. Mm-hmm. So that's 2/3 of the argument dumbs down. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think that's what we've decided to do with people is we placate to this minority that can't comprehend or understand or chose not to educate or chose to believe the wrong things that we build policies toward protecting them. And instead of just giving, look, these are facts, that somebody out there is going to be offended that their kid has to exercise. And the reason that they'll be offended, right, will become this emotional thing of like, well, my kid's not in shape and he's embarrassed and this and that. And this is how we fix it. Mm-hmm. The answer isn't don't exercise. Mm-hmm. The answer is be uncomfortable for a little while. Mm-hmm. Maybe realize it sucks to be out of shape because you're not doing yourself any favors. Mm-hmm. You're not healthier. You're not more resilient to disease. You're not a better worker. You're not more understanding. You don't sleep better. You don't have a better attitude. You don't get the same dopamine response. Tons of great things happen from you just taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So again, that goes back to that original thing I said, right? That like, you can be attractive at any size because attractive has to do with the person looking at you and what they think. Being healthy does not. Healthy is also not on the scale either because there's people that are too thin. Mm-hmm. Either extreme is bad. In fact, look, I'm 240 pounds. I don't need to carry around this much muscle. I'm probably already on toward the extreme side that's about as far and still healthy as you get to be. Mm-hmm. And I'll probably lose weight and lose muscle over the next 10 years. Probably. I'll be 47 by then. I bet I do. Fine. I'd like to see our country care about it and really care about it and not just want someone to fix it.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think a big thing, like what you're talking about, like we don't see health as a hedge against sickness. We just don't see it as that. We think that there's sickness that the doctors need to take care of. And then there's your health and fitness, which if you want to do on your spare time, that's fine.
Well, there's not great money for insurance companies in proactive healthcare.
Yeah.
Right.
And so since our hospitals and healthcare is a business in this country, we don't promote the other side. We figure out a way to give people pills. I mean, it's the same way that like between the 3 options of treatment, cure, and vaccine, cure is the least financially profitable. So it's the one that's going to get the least research done. Mm-hmm. Treatment pays companies the most. Vaccines next. So, I mean, running a business, that's what you do. You make a consumable good. I wouldn't put out a protein bar that you only have to buy one. It'd be like the everlasting gobstopper.
Yeah.
But like, I think another thing that was interesting when you like proposed the question is like, we struggle, and we already talked about this, but like we struggle with complexity. And I've heard you mention this before, like the fact that you are interested in possibly putting the responsibility on people to learn health and fitness so they don't get sick. Most likely is now going to, you're going to be assimilated with a type of person who believes this about one subject and this about another subject. And like, there's no more like, oh, well, he's probably leans more conservative because he said that. You know what I mean? Like, and then what happens is you become labeled, Matt Vincent is a conservative. And no matter what you believe, no matter what you say, no matter what you actually believe, complexity is gone.
Right.
You're just a nut job who believes this thing. And
we like being able to put things in a really nice, organized box and be able to say
small box,
good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? When the truth is there isn't either. Mm-hmm. You know, that's somewhere that I've arrived in the way I feel about drugs. Is there's not good and bad drugs. There is a favorable outcome from taking a thing and a least favorable outcome from taking a thing. In fact, I look at drugs the same way I look at any chemical I put in my body, continued with food. Mm-hmm. I get an unfavorable outcome from cookies.
Well, right? I don't know about that.
But at the right time, cookies are awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But too many cookies are a problem.
Yeah.
This goes the same for Tylenol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and further down the road with, you know, pain meds or muscle relaxers or psychedelics. You know, it all comes down to, is it the right thing for you right now? Mm. And man, I just don't, with the health thing, it's always the right time to be more physically able. Mm-hmm. That's really the term, right? It's not about looking better naked. It's not about the Instagram or selfies or any of this novel BS. It's about being more capable and more resilient and more able to do things, better able to help. It's about being responsible for you.
Yeah.
In this regard, that if it's true that we're strong as our weakest link, then I need to make sure I'm not the weakest one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like a way I like to explain it is like health is where your body, no matter whether that's weight or whatever else it is, a sickness that you have, is not making it so it's hard for you to do everyday tasks, where it's not getting in the way, right? Whether that's too big or too small. And so I think that is a really important thing. But even more so is your current situation. Think about 10 years from now, will you still be able to do those things? Because something you hear a lot of people argue, well, I guess I hear a lot of people argue with me about, is that, oh, well, right now my lab results are fine. And I'm like, okay, they might be fine right now, but you are 20 years old, okay? So they should be fine.
Just pump the brakes, right? Like if you're, I'm guessing this is coming from someone who's not healthy.
Yeah.
Right? We know what not healthy looks like. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that your lab results haven't caught up to what the exterior of you is doing, because it's going to.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to turn it around before all your hormones fall apart, now's the chance, because our bodies are incredible at adapting to things. And if what you tell it is you've chosen to become this amorphous blob, your hormones will follow.
Well, and then on top of that, like, it's not even just about hormones and lab results. It's about how are you able to move throughout the world, right? Like you're someone that's dealt with, we've talked about for about 30 minutes about knee problems, and like that was obviously not ideal. And the fact that, like, I know for a fact when you are, you know, over 300 pounds or whatever, very, very large, like your body is not made to handle that. So again, you might be 20 years old and it is, but I'm telling you, when you're 30, 35, it's no longer going to be able to handle that. So you might
shit not at 50.
Yeah. And you
There's
might,
a reason we don't have a bunch of 400-pound 50-year-olds.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you might even be 30 and still have lab results that don't say like you're super diabetic and you have all these problems. But I'm telling you, how do your knees feel if you stand up for an hour? Are you able to go to the zoo with your kids? Like all of these other things that I think constitute health, other than just what does the lab results say. And that's something that is really frustrating to me, because it's more than just lab results. It's how are you living? Right?
You know, if there's anything throughout your normal week, like if you're someone who doesn't train, if there's anything throughout your normal life and normal week, whether that's walking up the stairs at your office, or picking up groceries, or carrying your kid, or walking to the store, if there's anything you ever say no to because it's going to be too physically demanding, you're not in healthy shape. That's a very honest answer. And if you're doing anything other than that, you've lied to yourself. Then own that.
Yeah, I think that, and that's something that I think people don't get unless you've been there. And so it's something that I hear a lot from people that argue for the whole like health at every size thing, but they themselves have never been massively over or underweight. It's like you don't
They're
understand.
just using the wrong term, man. Mm-hmm. You can have self-love at every size, and you can have mental health
or worth
at every size, right? But you don't have your health. Mm-hmm. You don't have capability.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big thing. I mean, obviously I talk about it a lot, and I think that it's frustrating for me as someone that might disagree with what that camp might say, because you're like John was talking about earlier, you automatically get labeled as this person. Like they just automatically label you as a fat phobic person that hates fat people. Like I get called an X-fat, and they're like, X-fats are the worst because they used to be us and now they hate us more than anything. And it's like, dude, I just know what it's like, and I have a lot of people that are following me that are also in the throes of it right now, that are trying to get out of it. And so me just trying to let them know, hey, there is a way out of this, I don't think that is anything other than a positive message.
Also, dude, 100% agree with you. Anyone who takes anything that you've ever said as not a positive message is terribly incorrect and uninformed. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. That's, and what amazes me, right, is that what your platform is and what your social media is this sharing your story, this weight loss, and wanting to empower people to do it and show that you can. Mm-hmm. Why would someone who's following you choose to be like, he's an X-fat?
Yeah.
Like, you've watched this story, guy. Mm-hmm. Like, are you interested in being less fat? Mm-hmm. That's why you're following. If you're not, and let me just say that, I don't care whether or not someone chooses to be fat or be healthy. Mm-hmm. You just don't get to complain about one of them because it's a choice. You chose it. You chose that. Now, whether or not it was handed to you from childhood, from bad parenting and nutrition, to having a rough growing up, any of these things, I'm not saying that it's an even starting point to why anyone got there. But if you continue to be that way tomorrow, it's a choice, because it's simply calories in versus calories out. Mm-hmm. That's all that matters. It's a math equation. Now, that health is different than weight loss. But if you are obese and trying to lose weight, it's a math equation that you can do. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people also operate on so much scarcity, man, that the idea that like, well, I'm not going to, it's almost like you've lost all the weight so they can't, or that you found success so they can't, or because you're happy, they can't have happiness. Like none of those things of like health or weight loss or love or success are scarcity commodities. Like you can all have them. It's a choice. But thinking that someone else has yours is terribly incorrect, and it's short-sighted, and you'll see failure, and only you will see it because of feeling that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I want to hear what John has to say because he hasn't talked in a while.
No, I've just been listening. But I mean, I totally agree with you on the idea of like, it's a small mindset. It comes from a small person who believes
it's fear-based.
Someone else's success is their failure. Like it's
right, because I'm looking at your success as saying something that I didn't accomplish. It's my failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's not
and
how
like
it works.
No, and it's like, and then when you get in that, you isolate yourself needlessly, right? Like, because if you got someone who is successful, and they're successful, and you're like, hey, I would love to figure out what you did, how you did it. Like, would love to talk to you. Would love to. All that's going to do is help you out. They're going to feel honored that you look at them as a success. They're going to want to help you out. You know what I mean? Like
right.
There's so much more that comes out of this. Like, hey, they got success. What did they do? Let me figure that out. Let me talk to them. Let me connect with them. Let me build a relationship with them. But instead, if you just go, oh, I can't believe they're successful. I can't believe they're doing well. That means I can't. You've just created an enemy needlessly.
Incredible, right? Mm-hmm. Like I've been very fortunate in the people that I've got to meet and be friends with and travel with and do all that. And I'm very aware that of the people that I surround myself with, I feel like the least successful, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That means there's a ton for me to learn from the people I'm around. That's all I look at it as. It's, what's that other quote? Comparison's a thief of joy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. And like, that's dead on. Like, stop comparing it. It's your path and your journey. It's going to be unique, and make the rules accordingly. You know, for example, while Rob and them with Flag Nor Fail do something very similar to what I do, and we've become friends, my path to starting that business and his path to starting that business couldn't be any further apart. And you can't compare the two things. You know, we started from different places. We started at different times. We accomplished different things at different times. And I just can't imagine looking at his success or my other friend's success or my girlfriend's success and thinking that that's a reflection on something I did poorly instead of just being happy.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that feeling of like this emotional uncomfortable is what the whole safe space at college things was referring to. That like, you're challenging my ideas and I don't feel safe with my thoughts. So don't challenge my ideas. All we should be doing is challenging everyone's ideas.
It's how you grow. It's how you grow.
Oh man, it really concerns me that that's the direction our country wants to go. Is to not be challenged and not be considered that maybe there's a better way. Not a wrong way or a right way, but a better. And those things are different. And better for you could be bad for me. Right? Like, but that's the beauty why we all get to try. And learn from it. And who cares if you fail? So what? Both of these paths are going to end with me in the ground.
Yeah.
The outcome's exactly the same, whether I succeed wildly or fail totally. So why wouldn't I just try? There's no risk. I mean, the risk is spending your whole life sitting scared doing nothing.
Yeah. So for someone like, you know, you were talking about like surrounding yourself, you didn't say these words, but like with mentors, essentially.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, allies. Allies,
yeah. So like what someone listening, maybe they've been in this, like, they've been fearful, frightful, seeing people's success as their failure, you know, and they're like, you know what? No, I need to make a change. I need to find a mentor. I need to find something. Do you like, what's like a practical step you think someone can just take in developing a mentor or like an ally, you know?
So that's all relationship building, and it gets really gross to me when people start talking about networking.
Totally. Because
networking and relationships are the same. One of them has an end goal that benefits only you.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And relationships are two-way streets. And so if you want to start building genuine relationships, there are 4 very important words that should be out of your mouth more than anything. And this should just go in life. How can I help? That's what you should be asking. You should figure out how you bring value to the table to help the people that you look up to. And weird, they're more interested in dealing with you after. Because you didn't show up with your hand out waiting for them to fix your life. You showed up and saying, here's a few skills that I feel pretty competent in, which I hope everyone has a few that they know that they're more adept to, or one thing or the other, and start leaning toward, whether that's funny or storytelling or whatever it is. Like, everything's got a value, but you have to bring value to start building relationships. No one wants to have that friend that every time you talk to them, they just piss and moan about everything that's wrong in their life. Like, I want to be around people that are responsible and do take accountability and know how to say sorry and know how to work hard and know that aren't offended when I say, hey, I need to go do a thing, because they probably also have things to do. You know, it's a careful one, but that's what it is. It's about building genuine relationships. And I mean, look, you're not going to build a genuine relationship with The Rock right now. That guy's not going to be your mentor.
What?
Right? So
crap.
Start out with the other people around you, whether that's the guy that owns the gym that's in better shape than you, right? Just be of value to him and listen. Just shut up and listen more and just do the work. Stop giving an opinion about it until you have something to actually base an opinion on, not your fear response of like, oh, well, that won't work for me. Or that I'm genetically different. Like it's calories in versus calories out it's different for me. No, it isn't. You're a human. That's how it works.
Awesome, man. Well, we're about up on time, but this was a lot of fun. This went by really fast. We're definitely gonna have to get you back on. For sure.
Definitely do it again.
Yeah, this was really, really good. So just before we end, where can people find you if they want to check out the clothing or check you out on Instagram or whatever like that?
Yep, you can find me at I Hate Matt Vincent on Instagram. My clothing brand is Hate Brand Goods. I've written a few books. They're somewhere on my website. And then there's a training manual. I also have a daily training program called Daily Destroyer. And I built this with a buddy of mine, Derek Woodsky, who's a Canadian record holder in the hammer, another 2-time Olympic trials athlete, track and field, has coached Division I track and field, Division I strength and conditioning, his strength and conditioning coach for 2 NFL teams, and has been around a really, really long time, as well as had some injuries and recovered from them. We wanted to build a program, man, that wasn't max strength based. It was really about getting these skills back, like being able to move better, working on mobility, but also getting strong, but not getting hurt anymore. Are you an athlete who's a little beat up and don't move as good anymore? We have a program for you. This will be great. If you're trying to be the strongest you've ever been, this isn't it. Don't do this program. It's not for you.
Yeah.
And so I've got Daily Destroyers on the Train Heroic Marketplace. It's been really, really good. And you've got one-on-one access to both Derek and I every day. I think it's $30 a month. What else do we got going on? Hate Brand. And when are you guys airing this?
This will be out tomorrow.
Tomorrow. We have new goat shorts this week. We got new shorts out. I have to get a pair out to you guys.
Yeah, sounds good.
I stole a pair of goat shorts from my brother.
Good, right?
He did.
Oh, I love them. I can't believe how much I love them. They're called goat shorts, I should assume. But
greatest of all time.
Just DM me an address and I'll get in the sizes for both of you. I'll get 2 of the new ones out.
Oh, sweet.
There are Tropic Thunder.
Ooh, fancy. I like it.
Yeah, so they'll be out Thursday. We are giving away a gravel bike this month, man.
I saw that.
The giveaways have been fun. It was something I felt kind of weird and gimmicky about at first with the business. But then I realized I'm just going to spend that money on doing like an ad spend somewhere. I'd rather actually just give one of our fans something rad.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
And so, we're giving away this like $2,200 gravel bike this month. And I don't know what I'm going to do for Black Friday yet. Probably something big.
Free clothes.
Free clothes. Yay. Oh, what a disaster that would be. It's a terrible way to run a business.
You don't make profits that way. Yeah.
Not as much. It's weird that they're helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of, that's where everything is. We have So Podcast is my podcast. And that's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed doing that. And the YouTube channel is growing.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much. Obviously, everything will be linked in the show notes and stuff like that. But thanks for hanging out, man.
Dude, thank you guys a ton, as always.
Yeah.
See you, man.
Later, brother.